Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right,
That was good. Thanks,
All right,
Rick.
good morning, everyone. We do have a quorum, so whenever you guys are ready.
And
Mayor Garcia.
All right, why don't we get started? All right, welcome everybody to the Pioneer Valley MPO meeting of today. The meeting is being held virtually as allowed by House Bill 58, an act making appropriations for the fiscal year 2023, which among other things extends the expiration of the provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. Participants will be muted upon entering to the Zoom meeting. Participants wishing to speak should click participants icon in the lower toolbar and then click raise hand in the dialog box to notify me as the chair. Telephone participants should press *9 to indicate they wish to speak. *6 mute your phone, and that's for only the call-in option only. This meeting is being recorded for purpose of creating minutes. Please raise your hand now to notify chair if you are also recording the meeting. Please raise hand and wait for the chair to call on you. All right. Andy, are you doing the roll, or Dana, are you doing it? Dana, you're doing it.
I'll do it. Steve Wolfel.
Steve Wolfel, Representative Secretary and CEO of MassDOT. Monica Tibbetts not here.
Paula Simmons.
MassDOT Highway District 2, representing Massachusetts Department of Transportation, Highway Division Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Walter Gunn.
Present, representing Pioneer Valley Planning Commission.
Mayor Garcia.
Here.
Mayor Sciarra.
Here.
Mark Gold.
Here.
Rick Sullivan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
FTA do ex officio.
Oh, excuse me. FHWA. Anyone from FHWA? FTA, anyone from Federal Transit?
Hi there, Kirsty Hostetter from FTA Region 1.
Thank you, Christy. We have a quorum.
And Roger Fuller.
Did you need to call Roger Fuller or?
Roger Fuller.
He joined.
Roger Fuller.
He's
Here.
on. Okay,
Here.
thank you, Roger.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have a quorum.
All right, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the meeting minutes. These are from March 26, 2024. Can I get a motion, a second to approve?
So moved, Walter Gunn.
Rick Sullivan, second.
Any changes or comments on the minutes? All right, seeing none. Dan, you want to read the roll?
Steve Wolfel.
Yes.
Paula Simmons.
Yes.
Walter Gunn.
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Mayor Sciarra.
Yes.
Mark Gold.
Yes.
Roger Fuller.
Yes.
Rick Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 3, which is opportunity for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the MPO today? All right, seeing none, we'll move to agenda item 4, which is federal fiscal year 24 TIP amendment. Andy will take it away.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. So this is tip amendment we're talking about today does not impact our local discretionary dollars. This is a bridge project that experienced a cost increase. Just as a reminder, bridge funding, MassDOT controls at the state level. They have their own process for how they prioritize their bridges based on inspections, condition of bridges, all that kind of stuff. This project was already programmed in the tip, but like I said, it did experience a cost increase from $3.8 million to just over $5 million. And that's basically because it's at the last phase of design. They were double checking all the specs on the bridge, the extent of repairs that are needed, and just finalizing the itemized costs for the bridge project itself. Therefore, the cost increased enough where it triggers an amendment. So what we're asking for today is for the MPO to release this proposed amendment for 21-day review process. We'll come back in May, collect any comments, and then hope to get this amendment approved at that time. That's
all right. Thanks, Andy. Can I get a motion, a second, to release it for 21-day public comment?
Sure, I'll make a motion to release the proposed amendment for 21 days.
Rick Sullivan, second.
Any questions for Andy? All right, seeing none. Dana, you want to read the roll?
Steve Wolfel.
Yes.
Paula Simmons.
Yes.
Walter Gunn.
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Mayor Sciarra,
Yes.
Mark Gold,
Yes.
Roger Fuller,
Yes.
Rick Sullivan.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move to agenda item 5, which is the draft federal fiscal year 2025 UPWP. Gary, I believe this is you.
Yes, it is. Thank you. So at your last meeting, we had gone through the draft, the UPWP, to just give a generic overview of what we intended to put out. So we are ready to request the release of this draft. Just as a reminder, the Unified Planning Work Program is the annual listing of transportation tasks that we expect to undertake in federal fiscal year 2025. We did get additional updated information on funding. Our 5303 funding, which is then passed through to federal highway, did increase slightly. So we're looking at a total funding of $2,022,902 as part of this federal fiscal year. We lay it out in the table in this slide. I'd like to draw your attention to the last two items of that table. The estimated funds would be traffic count revenue from traffic counting or local pavement management. So we've estimated that at $25,000, and that's based on past history. And then we did receive the Safer Streets and Roads for All grant award of $1.25 million, $1 million federal, and $250,000 match from Mass DOT. So we've included that in this document as well. Next slide. These are the tasks that we expect to anticipate. In general, tasks that begin with a 1 are the administrative pieces of the work program. Tasks that begin with a 2 are data collection. The real meat of the work program are the section 3, which is the tasks that advance the regional transportation plan. And then finally, task 4 is those that kind of fall outside the other two. We, at this point, have just modified this very slightly from the last version we showed you. So the regional bicycle and pedestrian plan update is in task 3.2. And what we had included for task 3.2, the vulnerable road user safety study, which is a continuance from an effort we started this current year, has been merged into our regional safety and planning studies task. Next slide. These two tables just give a real brief overview. So I had mentioned before the 5303 funding from FTA that's sent over to federal highway and converted to the planning funds. But we like to demonstrate how we intend to use this money for transit planning purposes as it was intended. So we are expected to receive $423,209, and you'll see how that goes into the various tasks associated with transit planning. And then also we have to demonstrate as part of our RTP that at least 2.5% or just under $30,000 are applied towards complete streets type projects. We easily meet this requirement. We have in our estimate approximately $100,000 that we allocate towards complete streets type projects as shown in this table. I believe that's all we have for our slides, unless there's questions. Again, what we're asking from the MPO today is a recommendation to release this draft of the work program for the required 21-day public participation process.
All right, can I get a motion second to release the draft federal fiscal year 2025 UPWP out for public comment? Then I'll open any questions.
Okay, so moved. Walter Dunn.
Rick Sullivan, second.
Any questions for Gary? Seeing none, Danny, you want to read the roll?
Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
Paula Simmons,
Yes.
Walter Gahn,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Sciarra,
Yes.
Mark Gold,
Yes.
Roger Fuller,
Yes.
Rick Sullivan,
Yes.
Sandra Sheehan.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we have consensus.
All right, thank you, Gary. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to agenda item 6, draft federal fiscal year 25 to 2029 tip. put out for 21-day public comments. Andy?
Thank you. Okay, so as part of the email notification you received for this meeting, there is a link to both the complete draft UPWP document as well as the complete draft TIP document. The document includes a lot more than just the tables we'll talk about today. There's greenhouse gas analysis, there's equity analysis. There's a lot of, other federal and state requirements that are included in that document. I hope you all read it from page to page before this meeting. It's real, no, I was joking. So anyway, so just as a reminder, there is this complete document out there circulating right now, and that's what we'll be asking you to release. But as far as what this body helps determine what's going on with, we have a quick summary table here at the transit side. The gray line at the top, I think it's gray, is the transit capital investment. So this is what PVTA anticipates to spend over the next 5 years. What they're spending money on is bus replacements, bus upgrades. They're migrating away from diesel-only vehicles to hybrids or full electric vehicles. Obviously, the big electrification project that's well underway. And then obviously upkeep of buildings, all their maintenance facilities, all their equipment, and then equipment and supplies needed for day-to-day operations. So you can see over the next 5 years, they're looking at spending a little over $200 million on the capital side of the program. Jumping down here.
Oh,
So
excuse me,
this,
Mr. Chair.
oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, Andy, typo in the previous
Okay.
transit capital investment.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Now jumping on to the highway side, this table here only includes the regional discretionary dollars that the MPO helps to determine how to spend. We've distributed the statewide list last month, and the statewide lists are included in the complete document that were distributed last week. So in year one, there's 3 projects. There's a Long Meadow project, and then there's a project in Holyoke, and a portion of the project in Northampton, the Complete Streets project. Looking at spending just under $32 million in year one. In year two, there's a project in Williamsburg, a project in South Hadley, an intersection project in Chicopee, and another portion of the Northampton project. Again, spending $31.5 million in year two. In year three, you'll see a portion of that Williamsburg project. You'll see the Chesterfield reconstruction project, more money for Northampton. Then you'll see a project in East Hampton, their downtown Complete Streets project in East Long Meadow, and a project in Westfield. Programmed $35 million as of now in that year. Year four, you'll see a project in East Hampton. You'll see a portion of the Chesterfield project, a portion of the Long Meadow. No, you'll see the first portion of the Long Meadow project, a portion of the East Hampton project, and then the Southampton East Street project. And then in year five, you'll see the second part of the Long Meadow project. You'll see the Munson project, and you see Valley Bike Share. So these tables that we just showed you have not changed since last month. And then the summary table below, the first line, all other program funding, that does not include these tables, the local discretionary money. This is money above and beyond what the MPO helps to determine how to spend. So in year one, we're receiving an additional $65 million for statewide projects, bridges, interstates, other priorities of the state. Year two, we're receiving an additional $210 million. Year three, just over $200 million. Year four, roughly $170 million. And year five, $164 million. There's several big ticket bridge items included in there, as well as also safe routes to school projects and bike paths and rail trail projects. So again, that's above and beyond. You can see our target allocations in the next line down. And then the third line down is how much of the target money we have programmed in each of the fiscal years as of now. And again, like I said, this is a much larger document, but this is kind of the nuts and bolts that the MPO helps to determine how to spend. With that, I'll answer any questions. If not, we're looking for a recommendation to release the full document for the 21-day public review period.
All right, can I get a motion, a second, to send the full draft federal fiscal year 2025 to 2029 tip out for public comment and then open to questions?
Okay, eloquently put, I will move. So moved.
Second.
All right,
Rick
any
Sullivan.
question? Oops, sorry. Rick. Any questions for Andy?
I promise I will read the complete document and be happy to make any comments necessary in the 21-day.
Walter, you should actually give Andy a quiz at the next meeting to make sure
Oh,
he actually
jeepers.
knows everything in there.
Oh, God.
He was being
My rate, I'm very affordable. My rate per hour is about 0. So
I put myself in this situation. I deserve them.
Yes, he was being fresh before you guys all were on, just so you know. I'm doing this for Dana, so just so you know. All right. With no questions, Dana, can you read the roll?
Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
Paul Simmons,
Yes.
Walter Gunn,
yes,
Mayor Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Shara,
Yes.
Mark Gold,
Yes.
Roger Fuller,
Yes.
Rick Sullivan,
Yes.
Sandra Sheehan.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. We'll now move on to agenda item 7, which is the GHG self-certification. Dana, I believe you're doing the next two.
Yeah, so the next two are federal requirements of MPOs that as a recipient of federal funds that we are spending the federal funds in accordance with federal requirements. This one is specific to greenhouse gas. This is boilerplate language that we have used in the past, and when the federal regulations change, we update the language accordingly.
All right. Anyone have any questions? All right. So can I get a motion, a second, to approve the self-certification?
absolutely. So moved.
Rick Sullivan, second.
All right. Let's call any questions. Seeing none. Dana, you want to read the roll?
Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
Paul Simmons,
Yes.
Walter Gunn,
Yes,
Mayor Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Shara,
Yes.
Mark Gold,
Yes.
Roger Fuller,
Yes.
Rick Sullivan,
Yes.
Sandra Sheehan.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
So were you covering both of them?
So I'm just unclear, Mr. Chair, if that was a motion for both of them or just for the one. So this is the second one.
Yeah, I just called for
the-
one
the-
for GHG, so let's do this separate. All right.
Okay, so
Go ahead,
the second one is self-explanatory. As a recipient of 3C funding, we are required on an annual basis to say that we are spending those federal dollars in accordance with the regulations.
All right. Can I get a motion, second, for the 3C self-certification?
so moved, Walter.
Second, Rick Sullivan.
Any questions? All right, Dana, you want to read the roll?
Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
Paul Simmons,
Yes.
Walter Gunn,
Yes,
Mayor Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Shara,
Yes.
Mark Gold,
Yes.
Roger Fuller,
Yes.
Rick Sullivan,
Yes.
Sandra Sheehan.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Dana, for those two items. We'll move on now to an update on the Beyond Mobility, a presentation on Beyond Mobility, agenda item 9. Derek, are you doing this?
Yep. Yeah,
Right,
I will
take it away,
take care of
Derek.
this. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hi, everyone. I'm Derek Cravat, the manager of MPO activities in MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning and the project manager for Beyond Mobility, the statewide long-range transportation plan. We're presenting at every MPO this month to get the word out about Beyond Mobility, since it's out for public comment right now, actually, until May 31st. So I wanted to make sure folks were aware of it and had a little bit of background on what we're saying in the plan. So this presentation just covers a bit of content to give you a sense of that and promotes that comment period. So Just for some background, we are required to develop this plan by federal regulation. It's a statewide long-range transportation plan. There's no set timeline the same way there is for the long-range transportation plans at the regional level, like the LRTPs we do every 4 years. Our last long-range plan at the state level was actually in 2014. So we feel we're definitely overdue for an update on that. And this is our kind of response to that regulation. The last bullet point here is slightly out of date. Like I said, we recently extended the comment period now till May 31st. So you can go to the next slide. Just to put it in a little bit of context, the plan is part of a larger initiative at MassDOT. We're calling MassDOT at 15. We formed in 2009 as a unified transportation agency. And so this year commemorates our 15th anniversary as an official agency. And so Beyond Mobility is kind of one pillar of the larger MassDOT at 15 initiative. The Beyond Mobility plan describes kind of what MassDOT does and defines a vision for the future of transportation. The other components of MassDOT at 15 are the strategic business plan, which is there's a RFP out now for a consultant to help support this. This will define kind of workforce needs for MassDOT and really get at the who aspect of the agency. You can go to the next slide. And the final component, which folks may have heard about, is this Transportation Funding Task Force. This is something the governor has recently created, which our secretary is the chair of. About 30 members of this that will meet monthly over the next year to make recommendations for funding the next generation of projects and policies in transportation. So that's kind of the larger context. With respect to kind of the framework here, this is pulled from a federal highway training, this diagram, which that described the process well, where Beyond Mobility exists in this strategic direction box here, where we kind of set some goals, objectives. It's more of a strategic plan and policy plan. And then, of course, it's very collaborative when we actually go to implement this, right? This will kind of set a tone and create programs. But a lot of the implementation work happens through the MPO process, right? Through the TIP, the LRTPs, and other planning documents that go into that, and actual programs or projects. So kind of will all flow from that, but just wanted to note that, you know, this plan, of course, does not exist in a vacuum. Where you know, we're looking to collaborate with regions and municipalities as this all goes forward. So next slide. For the development of the plan, we really relied heavily on public involvement. We did a lot of kind of pop-up events like the one here, which is actually in Springfield. You can see the PVTA bus there in the background. This is an event we did where we went out and promoted our survey and talked to folks about their challenges getting around and vision for the future. So we heard from over 5,000 people throughout the course of developing this plan. And the idea was we wanted to make sure what we were saying was responsive directly to people's challenges and vision for the future. So I'll get more into that in the next couple of slides, which you can go to the next slide. Some of the stuff we heard, which may not be a surprise to folks, but was important in developing our framework, was kind of this idea of people really overwhelmingly citing the sort of vision to get around without the need of a car, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, especially as it relates to multimodal connections to transit stations, was really important in the responses. People with disabilities and lower income respondents really emphasized the need for better wayfinding, especially near transit stations, and then more frequent bus, commuter rail, and passenger rail ranked really highly. And this was kind of regardless of, you know, geography too. So even, you know, outside the MBTA area where, you know, people were citing the need for increased bus frequencies very regularly. So it's definitely something that is not exclusive to MBTA service area, which, you know, we're highlighting in the plan and being really intentional about the importance of transit in kind of more rural and suburban areas as well. Next slide. So we took all the feedback we heard and we kind of synthesized it into these 6 priority areas. And we also did our own kind of data analysis of more quantitative. And we felt like all the things we were finding kind of fell under the umbrella of at least one of these priority areas. Those are safety, reliability, which refers to kind of just travel time and being able to predict how long it'll take to get around, clean transportation, destination connectivity, resiliency, and travel experience, and then cross-cutting themes that underlie all of these are the idea of social and geographic equity, and then financial and staffing resources. So within the plan, each of these priority areas has its own vision statement, a set of value statements, problem statements, and key facts, and then a series of action items. So the plan itself has over 100 action items for MassDOT and our partner agencies to take in implementing sort of steps that will address the problems we heard within all of these areas. The next slide. The next 6 slides just highlight a problem statement and action item associated with each priority area. Like I said, the plan has over 100 actions. These are just samples of what they are, so you can get a sense of what we're saying, and sort of tasking ourselves with doing over the next, I guess decades, because it is out to 2050. But so the problem statement and action item kind of framework here is for safety. We were highlighting that 142 of our top 200 pedestrian crash cluster areas are in environmental justice communities. Again, thinking about equity as a cross-cutting theme, this is an example of that. We looked at equity checks, we're calling them, across a lot of different data sources, including crashes. And so we know that crashes, especially pedestrian and bicyclist crashes, are very disproportionately located in our EJ areas and gateway cities. And so, a huge problem, statewide problem. So in response to that, we're calling for a more dedicated program in our capital plan that will include a bunch of projects that will be safety projects in EJ areas. So right now we just have a broad safety improvements program, but it's not kind of focused on any specific community. So we're looking to get a little more specific there. Next slide. With respect to reliability, our quantified problem statement here is that people, according to our method called a planning time index, we found that it can take up to 8 times longer during kind of peak periods to travel than it does during free flow periods. I think folks here are familiar with how often Massachusetts and the Boston area in particular gets cited as being kind of a problem for congestion, right? So definitely heard that through our public engagement, and in response, we're looking to coordinate with transit providers, municipalities, and others to look at roadway investments that will improve transit reliability. So this is, we mentioned the MBTA on this side, but we're looking to do this statewide, partner with all the RTAs and others as well to really look at where we can look at highly congested areas and really encourage transit in those areas, either through kind of incentives or through dedicated transit priority infrastructure. So improve coordination generally between kind of highway and transit agencies to look at that. And then also looking at a study, thinking about kind of bolder solutions on kind of roadway pricing, and just a starting point for understanding what would go into things like congestion pricing, right? I think it's been studied various levels, but we're calling for kind of a more official understanding of what that would entail. Next slide. With respect to clean transportation, we're highlighting the problem, of course, that transportation is the biggest contributor of carbon emissions in Massachusetts, and that these emissions are, again, disproportionately located in our EJ areas. This is consistent with what is in the Clean Energy and Climate Plan that the Energy Environmental Affairs Agency recently completed. So there's been a ton of work done already on clean transportation. There's been electrification targets established through that plan and goals and so forth. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I think there's been a lot of our existing work on establishing those targets. So we're referencing those, but we are introducing some new ideas and action items in this area too, like this one, the second bullet point calling for a study on areas that might be good candidates for kind of things like land use and zoning reform to make them more transit oriented, especially with new passenger rail coming online, with West East Rail, with Northern Tier, with the larger Compass Rail initiative encompassing all of that. Where are there areas that we might be able to better coordinate transportation, land use, and housing to make sure we are using that as a tool for encouraging mode shift and introduce easier access to transit and new passenger rail. So that's a study we're calling for in this section. Next slide. On destination connectivity, we heard from all over that, again, just picking up on that idea of kind of greater need for better connections to transit and other critical destinations on, sidewalk network, and better protected, safe bicycle lanes as well. So we're calling for a program here, and again, in our capital plan that really looks at prioritizing a list of projects that would promote better multimodal access to transit. We don't currently have a program with this list of projects, and so we know it's a huge need without something kind of more officially responding to that. So that's something we're calling for as well. We have an ongoing effort called the Next Gen Bike and Pedestrian Vision Initiative, where we're mapping kind of statewide gaps in the bike and pedestrian networks and sidewalk network and things like that. So we're going to use that to inform this new program. Next slide. On resiliency, we know we have significant infrastructure, of course, exposed to natural hazards. This photo here is from the storms that hit north central Massachusetts, and I think other parts of the state too last fall, but those areas in particular where we saw a lot of roadways and other infrastructure damaged as a result of the storms. So in the plan, we quantify roadway miles and as well as transit stops and stations that are at risk, the sort of actual numbers there on the extent of this problem, and things like flooding and sea level rise and how that can cause damage. So again, there's been a lot of work done through Resilient Mass. There's the Climate Chiefs report that recently came out. There's a lot of existing action items for MassDOT and the MTA already when it comes to completing things like vulnerability assessments and other things like that to further quantify sort of where there's most risk. So we're restating a lot of those. One, again, newer action item we're introducing is better coordination with our EEA and environmental partners on thinking about ways MassDOT might be able to help fund things that come through their competitive programs, like the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, where municipalities look to fund kind of resiliency improvements, but it is very competitive. So kind of looking for kind of that interagency collaboration there, and ways we might be able to help fund projects that don't have sufficient funding through other means. So one thing there. Next slide. And then on travel experience, this is the last slide here, just last priority area. This refers to just the general ease of getting around and comfort using the system. And one thing we heard, again, going back to something we heard, especially from people with disabilities, people who don't speak English as a first language or at all, really mentioned this need for improved wayfinding signage. Sometimes as simple as locating where their closest bus stop was, or things like options for medical transportation, things like that, kind of having a network there. So in the plan, we're referencing our Ride Match initiative, which will involve better describing options available to folks for travel, and then a study that will look at an inventory of bus stops and transit stations statewide, that sort of like detailing what level of wayfinding and signage is available, and whether there might need to be more translated materials to assist folks access those, and looking at accessibility, ADA accessibility there too. So trying to get a much better data source there, and an idea of what might need the most attention when it comes to this problem. So that's the last slide. Again, the plan is out for public comment right now. It's on our website, which I'm sure we can plug into the chat, just mass.gov/beyond-mobility. So we're looking for any comments folks have, and through that and other means, and happy to take any questions. I'll turn it back to the chair, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Anyone have any questions for Derek or comments? Okay. I think we're good, Derek. So
Okay,
thank you, Derek.
thanks.
If anyone has any questions, please reach out to Derek, myself, or Chris. And as Derek said, that the public comment period is extended to May 31st. So we invite you and hope you'll share comments on that. Thanks, everybody. All right, Derek, thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 10, which is CIP development. Is Michelle here?
Good morning,
Yep.
everyone. Just a second, I'm just having a little bit of difficulty with my video. I'm going to, if it's okay, I'm gonna leave and rejoin and see if that fixes the problem. If not, if that doesn't work, I'll proceed with audio only. Thanks. Hey, everyone.
Here you go, Michelle.
Thanks very much for your patience. And good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Scott. I'm the manager of capital planning at the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. This morning, I'll be providing an overview of the CIP and talking about its relationship to the State Transportation Improvement Program. So just as a high-level overview of the MassDOT's Capital Investment Plan, or CIP for short, this is our rolling 5-year plan that funds the construction, planning, and capital maintenance of assets throughout the transportation system in Massachusetts. And this ranges from everything from roads and bridges to bicycle and pedestrian facilities to transit items that are funded by the Commonwealth, both for the MBTA and regional transit authorities. It includes our state network, state rail network, public use airports, enterprise services for MassDOT, and facilities and services provided by the Registry of Motor Vehicles. The diagram on the right-hand portion of the slide highlights the general framework we use to organize our investments within the CIP. This is kind of a nested structure based at the top with 3 major priority areas, which are reliability, maintaining and improving the overall condition of the transportation system, modernizing the system to make it safer, more accessible, and accommodate economic growth and vitality, and finally, expansion. And when we refer to expansion, we're generally referring to multimodal options, such as expansion of the Commonwealth's bicycle and pedestrian network, or investments such as through South Coast Rail or the Compass Rail initiatives. So to advance these 3 major priority areas, we have a series of CIP investment programs that are designed to support specific investments and move them towards those priority areas. And then finally, nested within those programs are individual projects. Next slide, please. So we support the CIP through a variety of funding sources. These include federal dollars, both formula funds that are provided through the various modal administrations, as well as grant funds. As many of you know, the bipartisan infrastructure law included not only expansions to formula funding and increases in the number of programs that make that available, but also expanded the portfolio of competitive grant programs. And so when those MassDOT receives awards for those programs, those are reflected in our CIP. Second major category is state funding. These sources include the state bond cap, which is general obligation bond proceeds. State bond cap is used for a lot of purposes in the CIP, but most notably it's used for the match for federal aid, particularly for the highway and transit programs. We also have a host of special obligation bond sources that fund specific projects, such as the Accelerated or Next Generation Bridge Program, or the Rail Enhancement Program, which supports South Coast Rail. We also receive funding from toll revenues that support our toll facilities on the Metropolitan Highway System, Western Turnpike, and Tobin Bridge, and a variety of other funding sources that support the CIP. Next slide, please. So this diagram on the right-hand portion of the slide highlights what's contained within the overall CIP. The boxes are roughly proportional to the overall amount of spending. The green boxes highlight elements that are included in the State Transportation Improvement Program, as well as in the CIP. These include federal aid highway projects, both those that are programmed by MassDOT and those programmed by the individual MPOs and transportation planning organizations throughout the state, as well as state match for federally aided transit projects. So as you can see by this diagram, this is a pretty sizable portion of our overall CIP. So the decisions that are made through the Pioneer Valley MPO, the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, and other MPOs throughout the state also support a major portion of our CIP. Next slide, please. So I want to highlight and compare and contrast some elements of the CIP and the State Transportation Improvement Program. They have a number of features in common, as well as some distinguishing features. Unique features for the CIP are featured in the orange box on the left-hand side. Distinguishing features for the STIP are featured in the purple box on the right-hand side, with the shared STIP and CIP features down the center. Both cover rolling 5-year periods and are updated annually. They both follow that same reliability, modernization, and expansion network. So if you take a look at the STIP and the CIP as a whole, you can see that program and priority construction carry through both. Projects are also organized into a common set of CIP programs. Both documents reflect fiscal constraints, so we need to stay within the boundaries of the funding sources that are available. And both documents are affected by the same processes that guide program development and project selection. For example, assessment processes happening within MassDOT to identify project needs, scoring for projects both at the MassDOT and MPO levels, and of course, project readiness for inclusion in a document for a given 5-year period. Highlighting some distinguishing factors, the CIP follows a state fiscal year timeline, so running from July to June compared to the federal fiscal year orientation of the STIP. Major key difference, the CIP reflects cash flows as opposed to the obligations that are captured in the STIP, which refers to the commitments that federal agencies are making to fund projects based on advertisements or awards. So while you may see a project programmed in a given year in the STIP, it may appear later in the CIP because the CIP captures when spending is actually ready to begin and then shows the flow of that spending over the life of the project. And of course, while the STIP is approved by FHWA and FTA, the final CIP is approved by MassDOT's Board of Directors. Next slide, please. So to talk a little bit more about our upcoming CIP specifically, I want to highlight some major factors that are influencing its development. We group them into internal and external categories. On the external side is the ongoing implementation of the bipartisan infrastructure law. I referenced those expanded set of formula programs earlier, including things like the PROTECT program to advance resiliency, carbon reduction funding, and freight funding. These are shaping the development of our upcoming CIP in terms of new programs that we're creating and maintaining. Commonwealth provided funding is, of course, another major influence in terms of the availability of state resources and toll revenues to support our programming. These are, of course, influenced in turn by changing travel demands and conditions, particularly as we continue to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, as I've mentioned thus far, partner agency planning processes, particularly the work done at MPOs, is really an important influence on our overall CIP content, as well as the information that we receive from stakeholders in the public about how we prioritize investments. On the internal side, we of course have the guiding priorities of the Healey-Driscoll administration, including expanded influence on and focus on climate. Derek alluded to the development of the Beyond Mobility Plan and of course the MassDOT at 15 broader initiative. These are having initial influences in our 25 to 29 capital plan and will definitely have stronger influences as we move further into the future. And of course, information that we're gathering from MassDOT's modal and asset management plans and performance management to shape our overall program. Next slide, please. So within that reliability, modernization, and expansion framework that I mentioned, from year to year, we do identify specific strategic priorities for CIP development. We've identified several which are featured on the slide. They include safety, climate stewardship, both in terms of climate adaptation and greenhouse gas reduction, asset management to support safe and reliable travel, and partnerships with municipalities. And across the board, we're working to advance social and geographic equity to ensure equitable distributions of funding across the state to the extent that we can. Next slide, please. This slide highlights the overall development timeline for the CIP over the course of the year. As you can see, the long bars indicate that these are a really iterative process at each step as we get refined information to incorporate into our overall program. We begin in the fall with establishing strategic vision and needs and priorities. We continue work through establishing programs and identifying new projects and updating information on existing ones, identifying and working on funding resources with our partners at the Executive Office for Administration and Finance and other parts of the Commonwealth. And this is a stage that's really iterative with the work that we do on the STIP in terms of collectively understanding funding resources that are available and how we can direct them towards our priorities. Moving into the winter and spring, we're working in partnership with you all on selecting investments that will be included in the CIP. We're now at the stage where we're drafting and supporting engagement on our final plan. And then we'll be planning to release a draft CIP later in May. And this is typically released concurrent with the draft STIP. Next slide, please. So this slide provides a snapshot as of early April with our planned spending in the CIP. It's organized by division as well as our major priority areas. You can see in that donut diagram in the bottom left-hand corner, excuse me, of the slide that approximately 57% of our investments are focused in the reliability area, with another 27% focused on modernization. Overall, these figures show the CIP sized at about 16 billion. You can see the share for each division in the table at the top. One thing I'll highlight is that our investments in the MBTA reflect our those made with state funds, particularly rail enhancement program funds. These fund initiatives such as the purchase of red and orange line cars or investments in South Coast Rail. Similarly, on the transit side, this reflects state funding that's being directed towards the RTAs, which matches federal funding that appears in their own programs. Next slide, please. So just want to highlight some investments in the individual focus areas that I mentioned in terms of safety and asset management. You know, as I mentioned, approximately 84% or 13.5 billion of the CIP is really directed in these areas. You can see the highlights for bridges, roadways, and other modes on the slide. For example, 5.4 billion is directed to our bridge program. We have over 900 million directed towards interstate paving, an additional 2.5 billion for roadway improvement and reconstruction work. And then the other modes categories, you can see investments for our rail network, paving and capital needs at our public use airports, and almost 200 million for regional transit authority vehicle and facility repairs and upgrades. Next slide, please. To talk a little bit more about climate stewardship, we generally group our investments into three major categories: alternatives to car and truck travel, electrification, and resiliency. The alternatives to car and truck travel range from improvements to our bicycle and pedestrian network, as well as investments in RTA improvements, statewide rail, and South Coast Rail. In terms of electrification, we're continuing the advancement of the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which is supported by federal funds and will expand charging stations along major arterial roadways. We're also continuing to support RTAs in their transition away from internal combustion to hybrid and electric vehicles and the supporting infrastructure. And finally, in terms of resiliency, we're supporting not only in investments integrated throughout our programs, but a dedicated resiliency program for flood control and culvert projects, as well as ongoing planning to make sure that we understand where major climate affecting hazards are and how we can address them through our investments. Next slide, please. In that last category, partnerships with municipalities, we're continuing our commitment to providing local aid. This slide shows in the table on the left-hand side, major programs for municipalities, the largest of which being Chapter 90, but also Complete Streets, Shared Streets and Spaces, and other programs to which municipalities can apply for grant funding, with an overall total for that at over 1.3 billion. Next slide, please. Just want to highlight some investments planned for Western Massachusetts in a number of different categories. Of course, have the bridge replacement for St. James Avenue in Springfield, reconstruction of North Main Street in Orange, bridge replacements on Route 2 in North Adams, continuing work on the Rocky Hill Greenway multi-use trail in Northampton. Derek alluded to Compass Rail in his presentation, and of course, this is a major investment in area for us in 25 to 29, supported by federal grants to advance the Inland Route Corridor project, as well as improvements at Palmer Station and Fort Tracks in Pittsfield. Additional investments are being made for RTAs, including advancing electric vehicles and improvements at Westover Airport and other public use airports in Western Massachusetts. Next slide, please. So I just want to highlight some upcoming opportunities to provide feedback. We anticipate bringing a draft CIP to the board for release for public review on May 15th, with a 21-day public comment period running from May 16th through June 7th. During this period, you'll have the opportunity to review the document in various formats. Again, will be concurrent with release of the draft STIP. We're hosting a number of public meetings where you can provide comment on the CIP and learn more about its contents. These are being organized for regions throughout the state. We expect the meeting for Western Massachusetts to take place on May 23rd. So we'll be sharing more information about that as we get closer to the date. And we hope you can share information with folks that you work with in your networks to support commenting on the CIP, so we can make sure that this and future CIPs reflect your priorities. Next slide, please. Just want to close out with some discussion about our future transition to Beyond Mobility. This plan is already influencing our focus areas for this year, but in the coming years, you'll see kind of a major reorientation of the CIP to align with Beyond Mobility's priority areas and action steps. And the table on the right-hand side of the slide provides an example of how we could transition an example program, in this case, shared use pass, bicycle, and transition, away from that prior reliability, modernization, and expansion framework towards one that emphasizes the priority areas, including destination connectivity, safety and clean transportation, as well as action areas supported in the plan. So I appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much for your attention. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Michelle. Anyone have any questions for Michelle? Rick?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the presentation, Michelle. Just a couple of things. Do you know where that meeting's going to be, the hearing on the 23rd?
So that meeting will be virtual. So that'll be an all virtual event.
Okay. So I just will give you a heads up. There was a meeting yesterday with Congressman Neal and Meredith Schlesinger, the Rail and Transit Administrator out here at Union Station. And there is a growing concern, which quite honestly, this presentation kind of almost references, that while there's a lot of money, some $9 billion coming in from the federal government, where exactly Compass Rail sits here, particularly when it matches up against the needs and the progress of both South Coast Rail, but probably more important, the MBTA. So I will just, pretty much the entire legislative delegation from Western Massachusetts was there. So, just giving you a heads up that I think that 23rd meeting will be well represented and the voice will be very loud because we've still got some big dig anxiety out here. And this looks like round 2. So I just really going to give you a heads up because I think in the meeting, which was a private meeting, she got an earful, politely, but an earful. And I would expect some of the same at this because it is really heavy tea. You mentioned the bigger projects. None of them are in Western Massachusetts. I know you referenced Compass Rail, which is obviously going to be a huge point of concern at that hearing. But regional equity is wonderful to put on a slide deck. But if there's not the follow-up with the numbers, and there's a large feeling it's kind of our turn.
Thank you very much for the feedback on that. And that's going to be a huge help, especially as we prepare going into that meeting. I know that one of the things that we heard from the development of our last CIP was an interest in providing, expanded information within the document about the Compass Rail initiative. And that's one thing that we're trying to address proactively as we're drafting the CIP. Your comments also will help us to kind of prepare more robust information that we can be bringing as part of our Western Massachusetts presentation. And you're absolutely right that it's like demonstrating what the distribution investments of looks like in the state and be able to allay concerns related to that. So thank you very much.
Appreciate the
And
presentation. Thanks.
Rick, I'll just add too, obviously Meredith will be bringing back all the comments from me. I knew she was out your way yesterday. I was talking about something else, but we will also reiterate that for the Secretary's office. So I appreciate the heads up. All right, anybody else? All right, thank you, Michelle. We'll move on to agenda item 11, which is updates from the districts. Let's start with District 2. Is Daryl here?
Yes, good morning. All right, so for District 2 in FY24, I'll start with Wales. This is project 608163. This is Wales reconstruction improvements on Munson Road. And from Munson Town Line to Reed Hill Road, design is at 100%. The 100%, including right-of-way plans and permits, were received last week on April 18th, and the review comments are due on May 17th. Next, we have project 608717. This is the Springfield reconstruction of Sumner Ave at Dickinson Street and Belmont Ave, otherwise known as the X. The design is at PS&E. Revised right-of-way plans were received on March 25th and approved on April 9th. PS&E submission was received just yesterday and is currently under review. Review comments are due on April 30th this month. Next, we have just FYI for project 613218. This is the Hadley, Amherst Hadley resurfacing related work on Route 116. The design, it was advertised on March 16th. Bids were opened on April 17th with a little bit of $4,639,182 from Warner Brothers LLC, and we're just awaiting award and notice to proceed on that one. Next, in FY25, we have project 608881. This is Long Meadow Springfield resurfacing and intersection improvements on Long Meadow Street, Route 5 and Converse Street. This design is at 100%. The review comments were completed, and PS&E is due on July 3rd this year. Next, we have project 609065. This is Holyoke resurfacing and related work on Cabot Street and Race Street, the City Center Connection Project. Design status is at 75%. Comments have been completed, and the 100% is due on May 9th this year. Next, and finally, we have project 609286. This is the Northampton Downtown Complete Streets Corridor and intersection improvements on Main Street. The design status is at it's at 75%. 75% submission was received on March 14th, and review comments were completed on April 10th. And an updated schedule and 100% submission, we're waiting that. And that's all I have for now.
All right, any questions for Daryl? Mayor Garcia, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Daryl, when you say due May 9, 100%, what's that mean? That's the bids?
That means no, the submission. Yeah, from the designer, the design submission for our review.
Design submission due May 9th. Okay. And around when roughly do we think actual implementation or construction you think will take place or may take place?
So this project that this is the resurfacing and related work on Cabot Street, right? This the current ad date is February 22nd, 2025 for that project.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, sure.
You good, Mayor? All right. Any other questions for Daryl? All right. Thank you, Daryl. Pete, are you here? D1?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Pete. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Just looking in the current year, fiscal year 24, the town of Worthington and its designer, CHA, they're wrapping up final design on the reconstruction of Route 143 in Worthington. It's currently at final design, and right-of-way and environmental permitting are being finalized for that project as well. The project that was mentioned previously in Cummington, the bridge preservation on 3 bridges in over on Route 9 over the Westfield River and Westfield Brook. A combined 25-75% design was submitted back at the end of February, prompting the TIF amendment that was released today, and Mass DOT is currently finalizing its review on that submittal. In fiscal year 25, there are 2 bridge preservation projects that are under consideration for 2025. The first is a bridge preservation on Route 9 over the Westfield River in Cummington. PS&E was received on that project on March 26th. And the second project is bridge preservation in Huntington for H27006, which is Route 112 over CSX and the Westfield River. A scoping on that project occurred last June, and the consultant is currently working on 25% design. And then just to highlight a couple of municipal projects that are currently ongoing. The Williamsburg reconstruction of Mountain Street we're currently anticipating a formal 75% design in the fall of this year. And a live virtual public info meeting was held back in February, and the revised design with a narrower cross-section was very well received by the town. And then the last project I'm going to comment on is the reconstruction of North Road and Damon Pond Road in Chesterfield. We're currently anticipating 100% design on that, due in May of this year. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Pete. Any questions for Pete? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 12, which is updates from PVTA. Sandra, you have anything?
I do. Good morning, everyone. Just my usual report on ridership. I just wanted to let you know that ridership for April so far shows a 15% system-wide increase over last year. And as I reported at the last meeting, we implemented some service enhancements on various routes, and ridership on those routes for the month of April, the last 2 weeks, or the first 2 weeks of April, are very encouraging. It's good to know when we make some changes, how that affects ridership. So we have some of the routes that I mentioned to you the last time, some of the big routes that we operate in, and some of the smaller ones. And some of the ridership on those have increased. For the P21E, which is the one that's express service between Springfield and Holyoke, that has increased by 3%. But the R34, which is a UMass route, it has increased by 47%. The G73, which operates between Northampton to Springfield via the Holyoke Mall, has increased by 66%, and some of the other ones are 13% to 49%. We have one at 71%. So it's very encouraging for us to know that some of the changes that the staff has worked on to implement, and the additional funding that we received this year, has made a big impact on our riding public. So that's what I wanted to report. We're also continuing to work on the capital projects that we have at the Springfield Garage. We are working on electrifying that facility, and also on expanding the UMass Transit Garage. So those projects are continuing. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. Has anyone got any questions? All right, seeing none. Thanks again, Sandra. All right, other business. Our next meeting is May 28th. Obviously, we have a full agenda with a tip amendment, the full tip, and the UPWP. So please try to make it so we have a quorum. Gary, Dana, anything else?
We're good.
All right. With that, can I get a motion, a second to adjourn, please?
So moved, Walter.
Second, Rick Sullivan.
All right, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks, everyone. Enjoy it. I think it's starting to get warm, so try to enjoy that. Doesn't feel like it in the mornings, dropping my son off, but everyone take it easy, be safe. Hopefully I'll see some of you next week at the Innovation Conference, and take care. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.